We are live and in living color. Hello, everybody. Yeah, say hi, people in the discussion group. So, for those who don't know, my name is Guy. I'm an Israeli geopolitical analyst, cognitive scientist, and aspiring philosopher. And I am the resident Middle Eastern analyst for Liberty Politics. So, I stream on both Liberty Politics and also on my own channel, which is in the description. If you can watch from my channel specifically, that would really help me out, both to grow the channel and also to get monetized. Because right now I'm lacking. Uh, I need like a bit less than 200 subscribers, but a lot of watch hours. So if you can watch the stream either on Liberty Politics and my channel, which is ideal, like watching on both, um, then like that would be basically that would be ideal. And in this channel, in my channel specifically, but also what I do on Liberty Politics, we discuss geopolitical developments from an Israeli perspective, and also Israeli politics and sometimes philosophy. Okay, so we already have a couple of super chats. So V4 Vanquish, thank you for the super chat. Javid Shah, absolutely Javid Shah. We all hope that Iran will be free imminently. And also Bobo, always coming in clutch with the super chats early on. Mordechai Kedar says that Mossad knows where Mushtaba is hiding. I would not be surprised one bit. Um, the thing is, I don't think that killing Mushtaba is an interest that Israel has right now. Perhaps if you do like a decapitation strike, sure. But Mushtaba is such a feckless leader that it actually might be better if he is the figurehead. I don't think that's why Iran doesn't dare to bomb Israel. So Bobo is making that claim. I don't think that's the reason. Even if we didn't know where he was, we would f things up very quickly if they dare fight us. And by the way, because of that, I think that the best thing that Israel can do right now, because the Islamic Republic has threatened, they give 48 hours after economic D-Day, which for those who don't know, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, just came out and said that America is going to sanction Iran like no country has ever been sanctioned before. They'll have secondary and tertiary um, penalties for people who deal with Iran or people who deal with the people who deal with Iran, even if like so to avoid a plausible deniability. And the Islamic Republic, in return, has threatened to strike all the Arab countries in the region. I think what Israel should do is to come out and declare, listen, if you strike any of our allies in the region, we will consider this an act of war and we will strike you. And I think that can be excellent, both to call their bluff because they don't want to fight Israel right now. And it's very clear that they don't want to fight Israel right now. And also to show the countries in the region that it pays to be allies with Israel. So, for example, if we say about UAE, if you strike UAE, we are going to strike you, because we're looking for an excuse to go back in. So that if they strike them, then we're going back in. If they don't strike them, then we show the region that it really pays to be an ally of Israel. Yeah. So that's my thoughts on that. Like they don't want to strike us because they don't want to strike us because they know we're looking for an excuse to end the regime. And when we strike, we will strike enough to end the regime. From everything I've heard from people here, that's basically like the plan. The targets bank is such that it would be a major strike. So thank you for the super chat, Bobo. Okay, now does anyone, any person or feline, regardless of how much I hate them, in the discussion group, have any questions or topics they'd like to bring up before I go into what I have planned? I assume no. Okay. So, by the way, I'm letting you know right now already. There's not going to be a discussion group like this discussion group next week because I'll be moving specifically on that day. So a bunch of people are asked about what's in the background. This is not mine. This is my in-laws because we're now in my in-laws' apartment, waiting for our actual house to be ready, and we're moving on September 1st, which happens to be next Tuesday. So there's not going to be a Q&A section next week. I will also post an announcement in the in Liberty Politics for those who would like to participate in in um, in future discussion groups, either mine or Armin's. Armin's does one every day. Ali, the resident Iran expert, other than Armin, does one every 3 days. Use the QR code here or the link in the description to join. Okay. So, with that out of the way, we have a bunch of interesting things to talk about. 1 second. Let me open it up. Okay. So, starting starting with foreign news. So as we just said, Washington has escalated its economic onslaught, what's called Economic D-Day by Besant. So apparently there was roughly 60 new sanction targets, and eventually any country that is maintaining major financial ties with Iran could eventually lose access to the U.S. financial system. However, major Chinese institutions were apparently excluded from the threat for whatever reason. And even Iran's own central bank governor, Abdel Nasser Hemeti, said that Iran oil exports have fallen to zero and that none of the Iranian frozen funds Washington had undertaken to release have actually reached the country. And like they came out in very weird ways in saying that, like, well, we don't care about the sanctions. We've been sanctioned in perpetuity. But at the same time, they're also saying, if you use these sanctions, we're going to strike everyone and everything. So they both care and don't care at the same time. In other regional news, interestingly, the Financial Times is reporting that Qatar has cut government budgets by up to 30% and overseas aid by roughly 85%, because of the war. And that's interesting. Now, depending on what's stated under overseas aid, that could also mean foreign interference, the kind of stuff that they do in Europe and in the US to try to gain soft power. So if I understand this correctly, then this is fantastic news. Apparently, the Financial Times is projecting that Qatar's economy is going to contract about 8.6% in 2026 due to the war. Okay, so first of all, with these two topics, are there any questions in the discussion group? Has anyone written anything? Halda?
Sorry, I was having microphone issues. Nothing in the chat.
Okay, great. All right. So the Mecca security architecture. So the Mecca agreement between Pakistan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia is now seemingly going to be, from an Israel perspective, the biggest headache that Israel is going to have to deal with in the near future. Now that the Islamic Republic is basically neutralized, Lebanon, and as a result, Lebanon is on the road to have to normalization with Israel. And Gaza is like it's not solved yet. We'll talk about a bunch of stuff that's happening in Gaza. West Bank is also becoming a bit of a hotbed, but but all other than that, we have Turkey and Turkey's proxy Syria to deal with. Basically, that's our main like threat in the region. And the pact with Saudi Arabia and Pakistan is also making Pakistan a more relevant factor that we have to deal with, and is moving Saudi Arabia away from normalization, unfortunately. Now, it's important to keep in mind that Saudi normalization is just going to be a piece of paper and moving relations that were under the table above the table. That would all be the only implication. It's not a huge strategic factor like some people are making it out to be. Israel can manage without Saudi normalization if Saudi requires too much to do that. Now, with all that in mind, oh, Yuda, you have something you want to say?
My question is, with Turkey, I see Turkey more like an franchise of the Muslim Brotherhood, like Qatar. And in this pact together, first I saw that they don't defend each other when they are aggressed, because they had been aggressed. One state, Pakistan, said they will attack another country, that would be Israel. And they tried also to use it when we didn't allow Jolan to have more nuclear yellow cake. And so, how much is Turkey a Muslim Brothers package deal? So, is this really Turkey or is this Qatar and Turkey?
That's a good question. Right now, Qatar is not part of it explicitly. That might lead to one to think that it could be a pact that's more aimed against Iran, because Qatar likes to stay neutral, specifically with regards to the Islamic Republic, and joining a defense pact with Saudi Arabia, who has strained relations with the Islamic Republic, might appear to be bad. Although Pakistan is also part of it, and Pakistan also likes to play both sides. So, it might be because of the tensions between Saudi Arabia and Qatar that Qatar is not part of it yet. But I agree with you. I would expect it to be part of it, which would be very bad because Israel needs to have the capability of striking Qatar at some point if Qatar continues to misbehave, which by all accounts it will. So this is like the Mecca agreement is going to be the major like antagonist from an Israeli perspective. 1 second, you're done. And just to finish the point, the Houthis, meanwhile, do keep striking Saudi Arabia. And nothing has been done, as you insinuated. So it might be a paper tiger, but even if it is, the fact that you now have coordination between Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan with regards to things related to the Middle East can be a problem. Now, Trump was congratulating the agreement. I think if it ends up being that the agreement prevents peace in the Middle East, he will be less warm towards it. I think he didn't quite understand the potential implications, at least, when he congratulated it. Yes, Yuda.
Wait a second. We do have other twos first.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So we've got Rebecca, and then Yehuda, and then Jose.
Okay, so skip Rebecca. No, I'm kidding.
No.
Yes, Rebecca.
Yeah, I was just saying that I heard some rumblings about the UAE joining the Mecca Pact, and I wanted to know if there was any truth to that.
I've not heard anything about that. That would be interesting. That would actually make it more of a. I would be happy if that happens, actually, because that would imply that the Mecca Pact is just a joint defense agreement against Iran for the most part, and Israel is not as much of a factor because UAE and Israel have very warm relations, and that's not looking like it's going to change anytime soon.
So it wasn't just them being two-faced or anything, because I was worried about them just, going maybe more back to the side of the jihadi Arab countries.
I mean, we'd have to see, but I don't think so. On the face of it, the Mecca Agreement is a Muslim defense pact. That's like what it is, and so what it would end up being. So right now we have like the Arab League, but the Arab League is basically dissolving. It's no longer relevant. No one takes them seriously, and so this might become an entity that replaces the Arab League in Muslim coordination. If the UAE joins the pact, that would imply that it's not going to be an offensive pact against Israel, at least for my in my mind for now. I don't see UAE dropping normalization with Israel. They've had plenty of chances to do that. They were much more like at the peak of the war, the agreements held, and I think nothing about the Iran war leads me to believe that like it's going to change.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Who's next?
Be Yehuda.
Yes, but I thought Jose wanted to say something first.
Yeah, no, he's after you.
Okay. So what I learned to make notes so I don't mix up what I wanted to say. So first, why is Qatar on the side from Iran? I know that they have a shared gas field, but they house normally only Sunni terrorists because they have the leadership of the Taliban in Doha. They had Hamas. They are going to the other franchise. The two franchise bank centrals of the Muslim Brotherhood are Qatar. London is the second central, and the third is Turkey. So it's also Qatar has a much influence in France without spending anything because they bought also all the real estate in there. And Turkey is already occupying 50% of Cyprus and 10% of Syria. So then I have this weird idea that Islamic countries follow Islamic doctrine. I know, how could it be? And when I know, and I read the Quran, so how can they have a defensive contract when their goal from the ideology is to conquer the world? I remember 9/5, for example, is to seek the unbeliever and kill them wherever you find them. 47/20, I remember, wanted to remember also is if you have the upper hand, and upper hand can be a definition, then you have to wage war. So how can anybody take this serious? Is it against wishful thinking? Like
So
George Bush said, humanity and fish can live together. He said also that, but he also said that Islam is a religion of peace.
okay, so I agree with you, but there's a difference between that and what the specific agreement is about. And so I right now I'm very suspectful of the agreement. It's just that if UAE, as stated, would join it, then that would make me think because UAE is not Islamic. It's Muslim, but it's not. It doesn't hold it's actually opposing. It actually opposes the Muslim Brotherhood ideology. Um, but like as far as what's Erdogan's goal, he just gave a speech today. That essentially, so I'll read a few select quotes. If anyone has their own agenda, rest assured that we also have an agenda. We have a plan, and more importantly, uh, the great Allah also has a plan. And at the end of the day, this plan is going to win. And the blood merchants will lose. Those who wish to take our region towards instability, and those who commit genocide will lose. Humanity will win, brotherhood will win, peace and stability will win. And this is in a this speech was given for the anniversary of a specific battle. I think it's Manzikert or something along those lines. I'm actually, if anyone knows the actual name, feel free to say it, because I'm sure I mispronounced it. But this battle was 955 years ago. It was a turning point that led to essentially the beginning of Turkish stable presence in Anatolia. And 2 years later, this turning point allowed them to conquer Jerusalem 2 years later. And so it's very clear that Erdogan has plans that have to do with direct war with Israel. And he is using Gaza as an excuse to delegitimize Israel and make himself appear like the reasonable side in pursuit of reconstituting the Ottoman Empire. Okay. Anything else? Oh, so like, Yuda, I agree with you. There's a difference between the long-term plans of Qatar and Turkey and so on, and what the specific pact is about. And also, both countries are one leadership change away from completely flipping. And in Qatar, you have the Athani family, which is actually split. Like, they don't all hold Muslim Brotherhood opinions, and like the previous leader was not Muslim Brotherhood, and potentially the next leader, like you actually have apparently a fight for where Qatar is headed between I think it's the brother of the leader and the wife of the leader, or something along those lines. And the wife of the leader is actually one that's more Muslim Brotherhood. And so what happens when the leadership changes, which is going to take a while, it's not immediate, could change. Like, Qatar was actually more like UAE right up until the current leadership came into power and took it in a Muslim Brotherhood direction. And in Turkey, like, you have opposition. It used to be a democracy. It's less and less a democracy now, and they now jail the opposition. But they don't have, like, Erdogan doesn't have the kind of stranglehold on power that the IRGC has in Iran. And so, in theory, Turkey can go through a lot of changes, especially if it tries expanding via war. And so what it's trying to do now is to expand indirectly through Ahmed al-Shara in Syria. But actually, what appears to be the case, and we don't really know everything, but what appears to be the case is that like Jolani, essentially, the leader of Syria, is trying to weaken Erdogan's hold on him. He recently, for example, fired several Turkish, like ethnically Turkish leaders from his ranks, and he doesn't really control Syria. He controls Damascus and, like, the south and the center, let's say, of Syria. He has no control over the north, or no strong control over the north. And when Turkey is establishing bases in the north, that's not necessarily something that he openly agreed to. And so when Israel, which has recently happened, for those who have not heard, strikes an airport that has Turkey trying to establish a base there, that's not necessarily something that Syria is really against. Now, there are talks about Syria joining the Mecca agreement as well, which would be a problem. But it's not as it's not as clear cut as it would appear of Syria being a proxy of Erdogan, and I think we should really work to further the wedge between them, or to make sure that Ashara is actually independent and not just doing Turkey's bidding. We've had enough of a megalomaniacal mastermind taking over a country and subjugating it to their own genocidal intentions, namely with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Now, Syria is a much less hopeful place. That, like, Syrians are Islamists for the most part. A lot of the Sunni Syrians just are Islamists. It's one of those regions that's no man's land, where ISIS had control and stuff like that. Like, this is not a place where, oh, let's just get rid of the bad leader and then you'll have democracy. Absolutely not. You need to have a bad leader, unfortunately, in places like Syria. They are not ready to govern themselves. But so like Ashara might be the least worst option if he manages to distance himself from Turkey. And actually manages to take control of the country, which he still has not done. So it's very unclear that he's actually going to stay in charge. Okay, so thank you for the question, Yuda. And Jose also had a question, but he's not here now.
Oh, Jose's not. Yeah, I guess he left. All right.
I will hope he comes back.
Then
anyone else?
That, I believe, is it. Nope. Yehuda just asked a question in here, but I don't know if you answered it or not. About the
You
Qatar
did
leader.
answer it?
He said, "How
You've
come?" You...
fairly answered the questions, and in between there, I write my comments. I guess that you are reading the comments, guys.
Oh no!
The comments,
so I'm actually I can't read the comments because I have two chats going at the same time. So.
I'm reading the comments, trying to keep up with you guys because I just ran off to get a cup of coffee. So okay, looks like we're set then.
So I just read the comments, and you are right, Yuda, that there are videos of the Syrian army, essentially chanting, "We're gonna slaughter the Jews, kill all Jews," and so on. I don't for a second think that there are friends, and whatever like agreement they want to do is probably going to be an agreement for the sake of arming towards an eventual war. The point I was trying to make is there's no one else there who could keep control of the country that wouldn't have that as their ideology, unfortunately. Now, is it better for Israel for Syria to be destabilized? Well, it depends. The destabilization in Syria is what led to the refugees taking over Europe, and now we have people in Europe trying to appease Islamists, and that affects their policy. So like you have it bad on both sides. Now, if we're going to stay where we are in the Golan Heights and with the Helmon, we have a very good defensive position against the kind of like ground assault that potentially they might want to do. We're not going to let them build other kinds of capabilities. We need to have our finger on the pulse. Like, Syria is going to be a problem It's absolutely going to be a problem. It's going to be a much bigger problem if it's this government that is also taking orders from Erdogan. That's going to be a much bigger problem. And so, to whatever extent it's possible to keep those two separate, it's better. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it's the least bad. Okay.
Might mention the new IDF doctrine.
About the kites?
Guys, that is that the IDF says the intent of Islamists is not in the treaties. It's clear what their intent is, so we are only judging by capabilities.
Yeah. Okay. So that's true to an extent. However, you can't completely, unfortunately, judge by capabilities, because if you judge by capabilities, then you should be at war right now with Egypt, Syria, Hamas, and the Palestinian Authority all at the same time. So you have to take some consideration into, well, okay, do they intend to attack me now? You do have to take into account that they intend to attack you eventually, right? That should be the narrative. That should be the assumption. That does not mean that you should assume that it's going to happen imminently. You should prepare for as if it happens imminently in defense. But you do have to make some considerations of intent. Unfortunately, you just can't avoid it. Okay, and Jose's back. So Jose, you had a question or something to add?
Combination. Sorry about that. I had a phone call I had to take real quick.
No problem.
Yeah. No problem. My only thing about this tri-pack is the fact that Pakistan seems to be terrified of getting involved against anyone other than Afghanistan. And their recent
And
attack
India.
on Afghanistan, definitely India. They're terrified of India. And their nukes are pointed toward India, not toward Iran. Okay. So I don't know what they're going to do, because if the Houthis have been attacking nonstop Saudi Arabia, why haven't the other nations gone after Iran, who's the sponsor of the Houthis? You know what I mean? It's a logic thing where I don't know how much of this is an actual working alliance. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things that everybody should be thinking about when they're thinking about this alliance. It's not just can. I think Pakistan would definitely try to help in an attack on Israel. I'm just wondering how Turkey would respond if it looks like if it's an attack on Israel and it's not a provoked attack on Israel. That's what everybody has to remember. Okay? Because Turkey wants to stay in NATO. All right?
Yeah.
And just as they found out when the United States went on their own, it's not a good idea when you think you have all these countries in Europe as your ally and they decide to tell you, nope, you're on your own. So there's a couple of things going against this alliance triggering simply. That's going to have to be something major. So I look at it this way: as long as Israel doesn't attack Saudi, Turkey, or Pakistan, they have no grounds to hit Israel, other than they want to annihilate Israel. But then it's no longer a defensive pack; it's an offensive pack, and that would cause problems all over the place.
Yeah, and they'd still, unless Pakistan specifically decides to nuke Israel, which I would be shocked if Israel doesn't actually already have. It's a far enough away nuke to where I would not be surprised if Israel has like satellite capabilities, laser capabilities that are in the works to even destroy that when it's outside of any range. But other than that, I actually think they're not going to make it. Like, they're not going to succeed.
Yeah.
Turkey is a more formidable opponent than most, but as far as actual military capability, power, like a combination of everything that is relevant, and also staying power. Like if there's a war between Israel and Turkey, I don't think Turkey is actually, especially with their economic problems, actually equipped to deal with an Israel that's actually fighting
Yes.
a survival war.
Yeah. I kind of agree with that. My only thing is that I keep thinking, how to say this. I keep thinking that we need to be careful, assuming that it's going to be an offensive war with the three of them, because let's face it, Saudi Arabia will be wiped off the map if Israel wants to wipe it off the map.
Yes.
They're a shoreline country. That makes it a very easy target. And if they think they were under stress with the IRGC shooting at them, imagine what would happen if all of a sudden we have the I'm trying to work at the same time and not the easiest thing today. If it has the an issue with the Israelis coming at them, you know,
Yeah.
because Israelis have the F-22, and what the Saudis have is nothing in comparison to it. So they're relying on American anti-aircraft technology, but that anti-aircraft technology does not necessarily work very well against stealth aircraft, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're looking at the new laser anti-aircraft stuff, the upgrades to a non-kinetic anti-aircraft system. So just be careful, Yehuda especially. Just because they sign a contract doesn't mean it's going to mean an attack. It means they're preparing for whatever eventuality, for sure. If they get more countries in it, then I'd start worrying, because you know that there's other countries that would be more aggressive than definitely a lot more aggressive than the Kingdom of Assad.
Yes.
You know, you just got to remember what they are, who they are. And remember this, that Pakistan wanted the war to end with the United States, Egypt, and Israel and Iran,
Islamic
the
Republic.
RGC. They wanted that war to end. Why? They saw that they could be very easily drawn into it because of their pact with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And they did not want to weaken their armed forces, which is, I think, is the actual truth, why they did not want to go into that war.
Interesting.
You know? Because Afghanistan could run them over with ease. And if Afghanistan hadn't triggered a civil war amongst themselves right now, I don't know if Pakistan would have signed another agreement with anybody else.
Yeah.
That's just thinking logically based on a lot of historical contents and how people think. I still haven't figured out the Middle Eastern mindset, but you got to remember that treaties are just a slip of paper. They can be all entangling, like World War One, or they could be wasted piece of shit, like the Saudi-Pakistan Mutual Defense Treaty.
Yes.
Because why isn't Pakistan sending troops into Saudi to attack the Houthis?
And why didn't Saudi go help Pakistan against Afghanistan a few months ago?
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. So I agree with everything you said. I will clarify, like, the problem with the Mecca agreement is not what it is right now. It's what happens if both Egypt and Syria, or either one, joins. Because then they could feel as though they have a security shield that allows them to arm in preparation for war with Israel. In such a way that if Israel were to do a preemptive strike, which Israel usually does because it has great intelligence, then the other countries can consider this a just cause to go to war with Israel. And so Israel would be limited in what it can do. I guess you can like announce ahead of time, listen, we know you're doing this and this and this. If you don't stop, we're going to have to strike you. But one, that's not enough. They can always say, well, Israel is just a false flag operation or whatever. And two, that also gives them the chance to hide it. So that would be my worry. Would be both Syria and Egypt specifically as signatories to the agreement.
No, I agree with that. And that could be why Syria is in the sights of the Turkish government with what they're doing. So hooray Israel for stopping that shit. But I think Egypt has a two-edged sword against their throat. First, they signed the Abraham Accord. Second, they got a population that's not happy with that Abraham Accord. So they didn't sign this Mecca agreement. They were thinking about it, but they decided to back off. So you got to think, what are the leadership in India thinking? Are they thinking, holy shit, we're even closer to the Israeli nukes than Iran?
Wait, can you say that again? Which country are you talking about?
Egypt.
Oh,
what is Egypt thinking? Yeah, what is Egypt thinking? The reason they did not sign is because they're members of the Abraham Accords.
I mean, they're not technically members of the Abraham Accords. They have a much colder peace with Israel from the 1970s.
Okay, I keep hearing Abraham Accords when it was Egypt, so that's why I said that. Okay, thanks for the correction. But they have a peace treaty.
Yes.
And I imagine they have a trade treaty as well.
Yes, they are reliant on Israel for several things.
Okay, well then that makes a problem because they can't do. They want to hurt their industry. That's what I'm trying.
They're also on the verge of bankruptcy as a country as well. Like, I'm not actually worried about Egypt long term. Like, they can try it, and then like if they do a first strike and we retaliate, the defense agreement doesn't trigger.
Yeah.
And like it's very easy for Israel to destabilize Egypt. It's also very easy for Israel, to be fair, to destabilize Syria.
Yeah.
It's very easy to destabilize Syria. It is extremely easy to destabilize Syria because it doesn't even have a functioning government yet. Like, so in that sense, it's fine. It's just that it makes a preemptive strike very difficult if they join the Mecca agreement.
Right. And then let's talk about the real threats to Israel. Hamas, the Houthis are being systematically denied. So Hamas remains the number one target since they're pretty much inbred within Israeli society. And I don't think they're disarming. The fact I've seen a couple of things showing that they're suspect that they're creating their own, what's the word? They're creating their own, oh my God, I'm word tied again. Their own armories underground. At least two have been found so far. That means they're not honoring any disarming agreement.
Correct.
And Israel, beware. I still think they're the biggest threat. I think they're the biggest threat. I think the Houthis haven't attacked Israel out of fear of reprisal from Israel.
Correct.
Because Israel is still, you attack me, I'm going to beat the fuck out of you until you have nothing left to do, like they're doing with Houthis. Because Israel hasn't signed any peace treaty or ceasefire with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So That is what the bad players need to think about. You know, that's why they're free to knock the turkeys senseless if they try to incorporate any part of Syria.
Yes.
And since the turkeys aren't admit that they're there, it's not a violation of the Mecca agreement.
Yeah, and allegedly some Turks actually died in that attack. I've heard conflicting reports, but they're not going to admit it, because if they admit that they died, that means they admit they were there, which means they admit that the strike was justified, which they're not going to. With regards to Hamas, Israel is well aware of what you're saying. Kushner really, really wants a chance for the deal, but the Board of Peace is seeing everything. Israel is sharing intelligence, showing them everything that we know about Hamas rearming, and that's why we just had a strike, like either today or yesterday, where we struck like 5 arms storage houses. Like we're striking because they're in breach of the agreement, and we said to the Board of Peace, like they asked for, I think, a month. Said, okay, you can have a month, but eventually, if they don't disarm, we're gonna have to go in.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. Like I said, there's no treaty stopping Israel from doing anything except they're okay, Board of Peace, fine, we're part of it too. We're gonna do it for now. They gave them a month, fine. A month from now, or from that date, bombs away.
Yes. Okay, so that actually leads me to really the next 2 topics I was going to talk about anyway. One is the whole Syria, Turkey, Tom Barak, Mecca agreement kerfuffle. So and how this relates to the Mecca agreement. So we struck, as we talked about, we struck the airport. Was on August 18th, exactly a week ago. Syria says 8 strikes hit the runway and storage facilities. No casualties were reported, but allegedly, according to some reports, there were some Turks who died in the attack. And Israel's concern was reportedly an impending Turkish military deployment there. Turkey condemned the strike, and Tom Barak, the horrible, no good Tom Barak, the U.S. envoy to Syria, but really Turkey, and really Turkey's representative in the United States, has stepped well out of line. He called it an unnecessary escalation. He then went on Mario Naufal's channel, an anti-Israel activist. Later, he suggested that Israel may have been trying to provoke Turkey, and that Ankara came close to considering a military response, and hinted at this being because of the elections. Now, Defense Minister Katz, Israeli Defense Minister Katz, rejected Barak's account and defended the intelligence behind the strike. Israel and Syria subsequently resumed U.S.-mediated talks in Jordan. So the chief of Mossad, Roman Goffman, went and met with their, I think, foreign minister, and apparently the talks went well. But Syria is now openly considering joining the Mecca Joint Defense Agreement. But they say they have not made a decision. What would constitute, like, what considerations they have, we don't know. I don't know if there's outside pressure or anything like that. Well, yeah. And actually, there was a super chat, so that I should probably go to. So Bobo is saying, Kedar, the same Mordechai Kedar that we talked about earlier, in Bobo's previous super chat, who also is the man behind the Emirates plan for solving the Israel-Palestinian conflict, that I personally am now convinced, since I've lost trust in the Palestinian Authority, and I now think that would be the correct solution. So Kedar is saying that Arab states support the left in the election. Now, sure, I'm not surprised that they do not want Netanyahu to stay prime minister. We have to keep in mind that the left, in this case, is built for a left wing. It has a whole lot of right wingers. So it has Bennett, it has Lieberman, it has presumably Yoaz Hendel. So Lieberman, just so you understand, lives in Nokdim. Let's see if I can find Nokdim on the map, so I can show you people. Nokdim is very much inside Judea and Samaria. It is a illegal settlement by international law. It's in the parts that are not recognized as being part of Israel. So that's where Lieberman lives. He might even be prime minister, at least for some of the next government. There are rumblings that he might demand it after Naftali Bennett's precedent. So Naftali Bennett became prime minister with 6 seats, with a mixed government between left wingers and right wingers. That also had, unfortunately, and I don't think it's going to happen again, but they also had the Muslim Brotherhood that was claiming to only focus on civilian issues. But like that president, Naftali Bennett was prime minister with 6 seats in the parliament out of 120. Usually you have like 20 seats plus for the prime minister. It's the head of the party with one of the largest parties, usually party with 20 plus seats. But since that precedent has been set, and if Lieberman gets like 11 seats or 12 seats, which a lot of people are predicting, then he might have a claim against Eisenkot, who now leads the bloc. So Eisenkot has like 22, 23, 24 seats in the polls. But Eisenkot has no ministerial experience. He's a former general. He was in the security cabinet, but he has never actually had ministerial experience, whereas Lieberman has been in politics for like 3 decades at this point. And so we could argue, and specifically Eisenkot, he's the former chief of staff, but before he was the chief of staff, he explicitly said that he should be the vice chief of staff before he becomes the chief of staff, so he can properly learn the role before he goes into it. And so you could claim that now, well, okay, you wanted to be the second in command in the army before you were the first in command, but now you want to jump right into being prime minister before you've had ministerial experience. That doesn't make sense based on your own principles. And so it makes more sense that you give, let's say, the second highest or third highest in the member in the government who has way more experience than you in ministerial positions and in the security cabinet and so on, which would either be Naftali Bennett or Avigdor Lieberman. Give them at least the first 2 years, and you can be minister of security or something in those 2 years, get some experience, and then you can become prime minister in a rotation type deal for the latter 2 years of the government. That's a very compelling case. There's a very compelling case that can be made there, and I would not be surprised whatsoever if Bennett and Lieberman perhaps join forces and make that claim, make that case. And notably, neither, as of now, have explicitly endorsed Eisenkot to be the prime minister. So it's not just that you're not going to have a left-wing government, you're going to have a mixed government if you have the opposition government. You're actually going to have potentially a government that's led by an explicit right-winger that's at least as right-wing as Netanyahu. So actually, this leads me to something else I was going to talk about. I'll quickly find it. By the way, I'll need to go in like 30 minutes or so because I want to have a bit of time before the live stream, the panel that I'm on with Armin and Sid and Monkey. Let's see if I can find it. Okay. So Naftali Bennett. Let's. It's again. It's difficult to when I do the live stream with the discussion group. It's very difficult to do it in such a way that I can actually show things on screen. I want to try though. So everyone on stream, I think this is going to be unfortunately the best way to do it. I am going to show an image of like the different people in power in or like what the polls show and what the different parties are and so on. And in order to do that, like I'm not going to be able to show this unfortunately with also the discussion group showing. But if you want to see the graph that I'm talking about, then you open the stream on your either phones or whatever, so you can see the specific graph I'm talking about there. Because I'm talking in theory about all these different parties, and it'll be very much more useful if you can actually like see what I'm talking about. So I hope that's okay. Okay, let's see. All right. So roughly, these are the parties in Israel. The numbers shift a bit, but overall, it has been stable enough so far, with one caveat. But overall, the numbers are stable enough to where in the polls to where you can sort of get the hang of where things are from this. Plus minus 2 seats for each party, except for this one that got probably 5 more because they united with a different party. They remade the joint Arab list, which makes it harder to form a coalition because you have less seats to go with, because these are not going to be part of any coalition. Actually, I don't know if you can't see what I'm pointing at, right? Tell me in the chat if you can see what I'm pointing at. Oh, Kevin, thank you for the gifted membership. So when I pointed things in the graph, can you see it? No. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And Kevin said, I'm from the US. This is where I really get confused. Okay. So I'll say again what I just said. I'll just point like from the left. I'll say like third from the left or something. And you know what I'm talking about that way. So as you can see right now, the opposition, those are the blue parties, have like there are like 4 parties. Eisenkot is center, arguably center left. Bennett is right wing, but a lot of the people on the right think that he betrayed his constituents. Yair Golan is staunchly on the left wing. This is like the left wing party in Israel. It's a combination of Labor and the far left, but still Zionist party, Meretz. And they're now like essentially the Kaplan party. They're the party of the protests that against judicial reform and so on that were here, that were in the lead up to October 7th, and then the protests that continued in the same place, calling for the return of the hostages, and then enlistment of the ultra orthodox and so on. So there were continuous protests the whole time this government was in power. It's just that they changed what they were about. Bennett is probably, so Bobo is asking Bennett 16. Bennett is probably not going to get 16. It's going to get probably lower. Although now he started to make a coherent campaign, and he also hid Yair Lapid. And he's actually, I think I can actually see him climbing back up. Okay, so I have some good questions. I'll get to those in a bit. And so you have this government is center left. Naftali Bennett is historically to the right of Netanyahu, but he has since formed a government with people on the left, and so many people on the right consider him a traitor and a person without morals, and so he will sell out his positions, his actual positions, or like or maybe he was never really as right wing as he claimed in the first place. But either way, he's not going to be true to what he ran on historically. He's going to allow so the claim is Gadi Eisenkot is left wing. Like the claim from some people on the right, Gadi Eisenkot is left wing, and he is too dovish. So I don't think he's left wing. I do think he's too dovish for where we are right now. Although not extremely so. I just think that we need someone with a more hawkish disposition. Okay, a lot of interesting comments. I'll talk about those in a bit. So yeah, so for example, Bobo is saying Bennett loves Arabs because he said in the government with the party to the furthest right here on the poll, again, furthest right, not politically, just on the poll, which is Ra'am, which is the Muslim Brotherhood Party, but they ran on a platform at the time that said essentially, we don't care about national rights. We consider ourselves Palestinian and so on, but we don't care about national rights. We're now running to improve the conditions of Arabs in Israel, which all Israelis are in favor of. Smotrich recently said, talked about like so Smotrich is, other than Ben Gvir, he's the furthest right in Israeli politics, and you could argue that they're similar politically. They just differ in approach, let's say. But even Smotrich said that we have 20% of our citizens that are Arabs. In a democracy, they must be taken care of. And the current situation is horrible, and we have to improve it. And that was actually a slight dig at Ben Gvir, because Ben Gvir is the minister of Homeland Security, and a lot of people think, and I'm among them, that Ben Gvir prefers the appearance of creating law and order over actually doing it, because it helps him in the election. Now, people who support Ben Gvir, and putting aside even his horrible personality, and I think he should not be in the consensus of people who can be in government, but putting that aside, so the people who support Ben Gvir often say that he did a lot of good things, like reducing the conditions of security prisoners, like people who committed terror attacks and so on. And also making it easier to carry firearms. Those are two positions that people often point to, that two policies that he implemented that were actually good. And that to the extent that he hasn't been able to do what should be done, it's because his hands are tied by the legal counsel to the government, who can essentially veto decisions that she doesn't like. And one would hope that she would only do it for legal reasons, but there's nothing actually preventing her from just saying this, I don't think this is right. And she's done that several times already. And then the Supreme Court told her, no, this was a legal decision. You should not have vetoed it. Okay, so back to what we were talking about. So Bennett formed a government that also had Lieberman. They're both ostensibly very right wing, but they formed a government that had this Ram party, this Muslim Brotherhood party, that was allegedly focused only on civil stuff in it. And so a lot of people on the right say that they don't actually have values and don't actually care enough about right-wing things if they were able to form a government with this party. At the time, it is important to note that Netanyahu also wanted to form a government with this party, and was only Bezalel Smotrich. Even Ben Gvir agreed to have the Ram in the government. It was only Bezalel Smotrich who said that no way, I'm not creating a narrow government with the Muslim Brotherhood. And so, but in the discourse, it was a legitimate partner, even for the right wing, for some of on the right wing, at least for Netanyahu as well. Okay. And so if you're not going to have a left-wing government, you're going to have a mixed government. So Yair Golan, the first number 10, that is left-wing. Eisenkot is mixed, but I would argue leans a bit left. But then you have Naftali Bennett, who himself is a right-winger, but his party now is more centrists and also somewhat left-wing people. But Avigdor Lieberman is all right-wing people. There isn't a single person on Lieberman's party that cannot be considered a right-winger, I think. We don't quite have the order of the names, but from everything I've seen. And so Lieberman is going to be able to veto anything that the government does. So it's not going to be... And Lieberman historically has been very hawkish, way more hawkish than Netanyahu on many things. And so I'm not a doomer as far as like if you have the opposition government. I think it's going to be fine if we have the opposition government. Okay, but some more things we have to keep in mind is... So Alexan is saying, any chance Zehut will join Smotrich or Unity? That's almost 2% of the votes down the drain otherwise. So Zehut is Feigelin's party. It's also a right-wing party in the sense of Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. It has a libertarian bend. I think Feigelin is a very intelligent person. Like, you like or dislike what he says, but I think he's very intelligent. I'm not sure he's fit to be a politician specifically. And that's why, like, he never gets past the threshold. The threshold is 4 seats. And right now he has like 2. And and those 2 are coming right out of the coalition. And if you don't have enough votes as a party that doesn't pass the threshold, then your votes are distributed evenly, proportionally across the other parties, and like all other parties, unless you have... There's something you can do where you have like an agreement where your votes go to a different party if you don't pass the threshold, but it's usually only like half a mandate. If both of you have half a mandate, then you have an agreement that your votes go to give the other party a full mandate. I don't think you can do it in a way that where if you don't pass the threshold, then your votes automatically go to somewhere else. All of them. So right now, Feigelin is a problem for the right wing because he is going to essentially burn up votes if he runs alone. It's not just Feigelin. You also have Yusuf Haddad, whom I like. He is the fiance of Emily Schrader, who is a very staunch pro-Iranian supporter. Pro-Iranian as in the actual Iranian people, not the IRGC. Like the Shah's Iran, Pahlavi's Iran. So he's going to have a party. You have Vintel, and presumably they're going to run together. And Vintel is also a right wing, but he might be able to fit into a different government. And then you have the center-right party that's called Unity. And you have Zionist Home. That's also a unity party. And you have Israel First, which is also a unity party. And you have... so as far as parties go, that's what you have. But you also have Ayelet Shaked is going to go somewhere. So you have another person that needs to find a home. And you're going to have, over the next 2 weeks before the lists close, you're going to have a lot of parties joining together into one to run together. And I think ostensibly what's going to happen is you're going to have, and I hope, like, they're incompetent if they don't get this done. But there needs to be a unity, like one major unity party whose ticket is, we are going to force a unity government between essentially like the first 4 other than Yair Golan. So like the first 5 and then remove Yair Golan. So you have Gadi Eisenkot, Benjamin Netanyahu, Naftali Bennett, Avigdor Lieberman, and this Unity Party. And these are going to give you a well-rounded government that doesn't have the ultra-orthodox that can extort everyone. It doesn't have Ben Gvir, who's a walking diplomatic disaster. Unfortunately, it's not going to have Smotrich. I think Smotrich is actually a very serious person and minister, and he can do a lot of good things if he's given a portfolio to, like, for example, Homeland Security. I think he'll be a much better Homeland Security minister than Ben Gvir. Oh yeah, and I forgot. Okay, one other party I forgot that needs to join is Einat Wilf. Einat Wilf also has sort of a unity platform. It's to break the framework that we have of Bibi versus anti-Bibi. And so, like, you have like 5 parties running on the same ticket, and all of them get fractions of the votes. None of them get past the threshold, but if you put them all together, they get well past the threshold. They get, so I say 8. I think it can be like 8 to 10 seats for this party, and if that happens, then the election is essentially over. We know what the composition of the government is going to be. It's just not sure who's going to lead it, and then you vote like based on that. Because if you have this unity party, then there's no other realistic coalition you can build that isn't what this unity party demands. And what this unity party is going to demand will be what I just said. Gadi Eisenkot, Benjamin Netanyahu, Naftali Bennett, Yair Golan, and Avigdor Lieberman. And I think that's actually going to be one of the better governments that Israel has had, because it won't have, like, on the left wing, you're going to have to deal with Yair Golan and the people in his party who, unfortunately, I mean, from their perspective, they're right to be this fanatical because they feel like their democracy, like, so people tried to steal their democracy. It's just, it's not what happened. I don't know how else to say this. But they truly think that it did. And so from their perspective, their quasi-fascistic policies, like closing a news channel and so on, are justified because this new news channel tried to do a coup in Israeli democracy. So Silent Protagonist is asking, how dangerous do you think Yair Golan is? That's exactly what I'm talking about now. Now, he's not going to be powerful enough to do a lot, right? But if you're forced into a narrow government where he's there and also Mansour Abbas is there, then you're going to be stifled in what you can do. This government is not going to be able to do a lot. Whereas if you have a government that's built from the other parties that I mentioned, there will be a lot that they will be able to get done, and a lot of it will be good. And if they have the unity party to glue them together, then they'll be forced to sit in the same government together. Yeah. Will it be Eisenkot? So it'll be either Eisenkot or Netanyahu in this case. I think Bennett and Avigdor Lieberman will both lose their leverage in that situation. So it will be either Eisenkot or Netanyahu, not necessarily the one with the more seats, because if Bennett and Lieberman don't want Netanyahu to be there because they have a personal vendetta against him, and or they think, like, they've seen what he is behind the scenes and they don't trust him behind the wheel, again, depending on who you ask, then they might support Eisenkot to spite Netanyahu, so Netanyahu will have to make do with a different portfolio, like with being a minister in the government, or you'll have a rotation government where you have 2 years where one of them is the head, and 2 years where the other one is the head. So Kevin Shaw says Ben Gvir only has 8. So that's interesting to say that, Kevin. Did you expect him to have more? I think if you did, I think that's not an accident. I think it's because if you look at external media, they love to point at the spotlight on Ben Gvir and then imply that Ben Gvir is representative of Israeli politics, and then say, and therefore Israeli politics is like Israel is filled with crazies and so on. The funny thing is, Ben Gvir is not representative of Israeli politics. He has less than 10% of the vote. But the kind of things that they dislike Ben Gvir for example, and I agree with this criticism, he had a picture of a Jewish terrorist, Baruch Goldstein, on over his mantle, who went into the cave of the patriarchs and shot up the place and killed several people who were praying. There are claims. I've not seen any remotely convincing evidence that this is true, but that they were planning a terror attack. But even then, you're not supposed to do it yourself. And most likely, it's not the case. From my own, assessment. But if that's the case, and if that's the thing that disqualifies him, then let's look at the Palestinian Authority, because every single person there, top to bottom, has venerated terrorists who did nothing but kill innocent civilians. So if he dislike Ben Gvir for having this picture on his mantle, and that disqualifies him, that means that the entire Palestinian Authority is disqualified. They name streets after these people. They have monuments. Just today, there was a monument that was broken by a member of Knesset, Tzvi Sukkot, a monument. And then, like, you have an outrage. Why are you breaking a monument? How dare you? And like a monument in a Palestinian village. Except the monument was for a person who did terror attacks and killed innocent people. And so the monument should be broken. It just should not be done extrajudiciously. And the army is claiming that it was actually going to be broken in an orderly fashion in a couple of weeks. And so it was more of a publicity stunt, but it cost him a lot. Like, it wasn't a good publicity stunt because everyone came out against it. Like, okay, sure, we should break the monument. The monument isn't bad, but you can't do this yourself. Yeah, okay. So, Soapbox, what is your best rational prediction how this year's election comes out? So that's what I just said. I think you're going to have, if it doesn't end up the way I say, then that's a major failure on the people who want to create a unity government. If you want to form a unity government, but you can't find unity amongst yourselves to have a coherent party that goes well past the threshold, then you don't deserve to have the unity government, and you're a failure. But assuming that they're not such a failure, then there's going to be a good solid block in the unity government position, and as a result, you're going to have a government with Gadi Eisenkot, Likud, Bennett, and Lieberman. And this will be forced upon them by this unity government, a unity party. Okay. And by the way, people are saying, like, already people from these party fragments are saying you're going to see a large unification among parties in the center right over the next 2 weeks before the deadline for what the lists are arrives. If there isn't such a party, then I'll give a separate prediction, and then I'll also update the graph. Okay. Right, Halda. Anything in the chat? Does anyone have anything to say about that? Because that was a lot. Let me put the. Okay. Okay. All right. So I was going to talk about Naftali Bennett's security concept. So, and like you judge whether this is a person who's right wing or left wing. Are they going to troll the world with Bibi as foreign minister? I had that thought, Roman Viking. I don't think it's going to be a good idea. Let's put it that way. Like, you don't want to troll the world with who your foreign minister is. Will Bibi remain as prime minister is what I mean. It's hard to say. I think there's going to be a rotation where he's going to be prime minister for part of the time. Okay, so Bennett's security concept. One, in the not too distant future, AI capabilities will be more important even than nuclear weapons. By the way, Netanyahu said something similar. We'll flip the the equation that was created in the north. If Hezbollah shoots at us, we strike Iran. So it's not Iran said that, oh, Israel must not strike Lebanon or the deal is off. What he's saying now, by the way, it's very easy to say that. You have to also coordinate with the Americans and so on. So it's easy to say that these things, and it's much harder to actually implement them. Just something to keep in mind. And so he says, if Hezbollah shoots at us, we strike inside Iran. And he's saying we need to break false concepts that existed before October 7th. The first one is so the first one was what I just said. If Hezbollah shoots at Israel, we will strike Iran. And the other concept is Qatar is a complex country, which was said by both Eisenkot and Netanyahu. And he's saying, no, we're going to define Qatar to be an enemy state. And anyone who doesn't understand this after October 7th is not fit to lead Israel. We'll get rid of Turkey and Qatar from Gaza, from the Board of Peace in Gaza, and put in Egypt in their place, alongside maintaining our freedom of action. And also, 500,000 illegal weapons are inside Israeli borders, and we will define this as a security as opposed to a criminal threat, meaning that it's not the police who will have to deal with it, but rather the IDF and Shin Bet. Shin Bet is sort of like the FBI of Israel. Okay. Yeah, so people... So, like, people who don't like Bennett, it's not that they don't necessarily like what he says, it's that they don't believe him because of what he did in 2021. I see this like in the chat. I don't trust Bennett's word salad. I don't necessarily disagree, but Bennett just seems like such a nebbish. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's see what else I have for today. By the way, so let me know if that was clear. The elections are coming up, so like this is very often relevant. I still maintain my prediction that you're going to have the unity party. Nothing has happened so far to make me think that that's not going to happen. But again, if it doesn't happen, then I'll update my prediction and I'll let you know what I think is going to happen. All right. Something also that's concerning about Syria is that Washington formally removed Syria from the state sponsors of terrorism list, dramatically easing its path towards international economic reintegration. Now, it's still being constituted, but this is somewhat concerning from an Israeli perspective. Okay, so Subbox with an interesting question. So I'm curious how Israeli elections would impact the USA, as in if it changes hands, what does that mean for US-Israel relations? I don't think it means much. I'll be honest with you. Like, they're going to remain good, and hopefully both sides, like hopefully even before the election, you have Netanyahu creating the off-ramp from the MOU and switch to a co-development R&D partnership, allyship. And if that happens, a lot of the sting out of Israeli-US relations that for the people who are against Israel will go away. Okay, so Alexander is saying, Netanyahu at least tries to convince the Americans of Israel's viewpoint. Ben will just say, yes, sir, I'll do what you say. I don't know if he'll say, yes, sir, I'll do what you say. But I disagree that Netanyahu at least tries to convince the Americans of Israel's viewpoint more than Bennett. I actually think this is one of Netanyahu's weakest points, and one thing that Bennett is far, far better at. Bennett constantly goes on Piers Morgan and very eloquently presents Israel's positions such that, without compromising on what they are, such that Piers actually likes him and hopes he's the next prime minister. And so that tells you, I think, if you have a government without Netanyahu, there is an upside to that. A lot of reasonable people will be able to be on Israel's side much more readily. Now, it's mostly based on lies that were told about this government, but still, there is a benefit to that. And I think also Bennett is more in tune with how to fight the what we call the Eighth Front. The Eighth Front is the new name for the media war and the narrative war that Israel has been absent from, and now a lot of people are starting to take seriously, but actually don't trust Netanyahu, unfortunately, to do it well. I think he's just too old to really understand properly where these things are and what's happening. Bennett lately seems harsher than Trump, in my opinion. Can you explain what you mean, Soapbox? Like, how so? Okay. So there's more stuff with Trump and Iran, but oh, hey, Jasper. Or Jasper. I forgot how to pronounce it. Sorry. Actually, if you said the name, then I missed it. Okay, so yeah, okay, Jasper. Yeah. So Jasper is actually working. If you've seen my anti-propaganda resource bank, then Jasper is actually working on making a website out of it that will be easily accessible and people can also submit stuff. I'll probably do at some point a live stream just dedicated to showing like the best stuff from there and then cutting that up into videos that I'll put on my channel. Probably towards the end of next week after I move. Or maybe like a bit after that, once I have like my setup properly with the Israeli flag and the Iranian flag and so on. I have a lot of plans for having a space that's actually like conducive to properly streaming. Okay. Okay, so Bennett's speech. So Sobox is saying Bennett's speech from yesterday was harsh on Iran government. I hope that by the time the government goes into power, it's clear that the regime is falling. I'd hope that like we don't have to discuss who's going to be better on Iran because they're all like because it's not going to matter. I sincerely hope that happens. Not necessarily that the fight will be over, but that it will be clear that the regime has collapsed and now there's like infighting such that the regime would fall. Okay, so Autumn is saying Bennett echoes the settler violence lie when it's convenient. I have not heard him talk about any settler violence that wasn't actually true. And he also, from what I've seen, but if you have specific timestamp or like in this speech at this time, he talked about settler violence in a way that was false. Like he also makes sure to clarify that this is not something that most settlers do. There is a small minority of settlers that unfortunately hurt most of the other ones, which is nothing that for example, the head of the settlers in Judea and Samaria also comes out and says this and condemns certain things that happen in the West Bank. It's not that there's zero violence. It's just that there's way less than what's actually thought of in the West. So if you look at the UN reports, only 10% of those are actual violence that isn't like self-defense. However, that 10% still happens. And when it happens, you have to condemn it. Okay. Oh, hey, Sid. Sid's here. So once Sid has a channel, I wish I could send people to your channel, but once he does, absolutely subscribe to Sid. I really like Sid's opinions and his nuanced takes. and I'm probably going to see him in like 30 minutes in the panel. So Sid, hurry up and get your channel ready so I can advertise it. Okay. What else? I should probably go actually in a couple minutes. Oh, okay. So this leads right into what we were talking about with Watem. So Watem said he talked about some settler violence lies. Speaking of lies, so there are several claims. There's general like, oh, genocide, which we know is not true. But there are several claims of specific instances that at least some of which are likely to be true or reasonably or like are plausible, where the IDF did stuff that is bad. Now, the context is that this is true of any war. In any war, when you have tens of thousands of soldiers, you're going to have some bad apples, and you're going to have some events that didn't happen the way the actual principles of the army say you should conduct yourself. But I've personally seen how much effort there is from the military to spare innocent lives and to find ways to conduct the war such that it minimizes civilian casualties and so on. Okay, so quickly I'll respond to Lotem. The lie is not that it is not a rare thing, and most cases claimed are actually the other way around. The lie is not that it exists, but when you call it common, you are lying. Yes, but I've never seen. I agree with that, but I have never seen Bennett say that it's common or talk about specific cases that didn't end up like that were that ended up being false or the opposite. Oh, sorry. Okay. And so the IDF is investigating alleged unlawful conduct in Gaza, which, by the way, is what a democratic military does after a conflict is over. You actually investigate, and then, if necessary, you deal punishments to the people who did it. If it's be it jail time or whatever. Okay, so it's now investigating 2 major incidents following reviews by its independent fact-finding mechanism. Actually, you saw it was 3. One is Hind Rajab, but specifically the criminal issue centers particularly on alleged failures surrounding the coordinated ambulance movement. Now, from what I've seen, there's actually some initial findings, and that the problem wasn't with what the military was doing. And and what one of which, the World Kitchen, is also the World Central Kitchen. World Central Kitchen strike, but they did not find sufficient suspicion to open criminal cases there because of, for example, the World Central Kitchen allowed Hamas armed militia to use its cars, and so it was reasonable to assume that the WCK car that was struck had Hamas operatives on it, because they have been using WCK vehicles. And if you don't want to put the WCK workers in harm's way, you should not allow Hamas to take advantage of your humanitarian mission, which it does constantly to everyone. Okay, so this another concern is the March 2025 Tel Sultan incident, in which IDF troops fired on rescue vehicles and 15 Palestinians, including medical personnel and a UN employee, were killed. Now, I do want to stress that someone being a part of medical personnel or UN employee is not relevant information whatsoever. Hamas members also have day jobs. Some of them studied medicine. Being a medical professional does not make you immune from being struck if you're a terrorist also. Same with being a teacher. Oh, a teacher died. Yes, this teacher happened to be a commander of a brigade. So his day job as a teacher, that's not relevant. and especially UN employee, a lot of UN employees are Hamas operatives. So what the IDF found is that 6 of the dead were Hamas members, but nevertheless, the shooting did raise reasonable suspicion of criminal misconduct that should be investigated further, and that's what the IDF is now doing. So, for the most, journalist also is another profession that people have that make things that makes them immune from consequences of being a terrorist. So the IDF, most of the claims are false, but the IDF nevertheless investigates every single claim, and if something ends up being bad, which something's bound to be bad in a 3-year war under these conditions, some mistakes are bound to happen, and some misconducts are bound to happen. Unfortunately, that's the nature of war. It's just that in war, these things are very costly. But when they happen, the IDF investigates them, and if necessary, punishes the people involved. Kevin saying 2 more hours of airtime, guy. Keep up the great work, sir. Yes, thank you. Okay. Let's see if I have time for one more topic. Okay. Yes, so the West Bank. Really quickly about the West Bank. So we're talking about settlers. The West Bank, again, is... Let me see if I can quickly show this. Again, for people in the group discussion, unfortunately, this is the best way I found to do it. Like, you'll have to open the stream, which I encourage you to do anyway because I need the watch hours. But like, I'm going to show a map of Israel just so people understand what the West Bank is and where it is and so on. One second. Okay, this is the West Bank. So this is the map of Israel. Gaza is in the southwest. The West Bank is in the east. It's called the West Bank because it's the West Bank of the Jordan River. The Jordan River is the thing separating Israel from Jordan. The reason it's called Jordan is because of the Jordan River. It's actually a new invention as a country. It didn't exist prior to Sykes-Picot and the British Mandate and so on. Okay, so we're talking about the West Bank. This is the area where you have the Palestinian Authority and you have settlers and you have Palestinians. Most Palestinians live here. Okay, so just to clarify that. Yeah, I know. I can't share the screen. I can't share the screen on the group discussion because then it says you are sharing your screen, and then the people in the live show can't see it. And so it's a bit difficult. Yeah, so that's why I said that it's probably the best option is that the people in the group discussion, like if you know where the West Bank is and you know the map, which I assume most of you do, you probably don't need this. This is for like new viewers. Yeah, so the West Bank, I mean Judea and Samaria, yes. So yeah, so just so you know, this is what the West Bank is. And that's the area we'll be talking about now, and that's where the Palestinian Authority is. All right, so back to the group discussion. By the way, are there any questions by anyone in the... Have you seen anything, Alda? Okay, so
Nothing yet.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, so apparently the Palestinian Authority is in a financial crisis. So Israel, because of its pay for slay policy, the Palestinian Authority, if you killed Israelis and you go to jail, then the Palestinian Authority is going to give a stipend to your family for life, essentially incentivizing people to commit terror attacks against Israeli civilians. And I think it also grows, like, the more people you kill, the more money you get, but it could be wrong about that. So feel free to fact check that specifically. But nevertheless, they do pay for slay, and they claim to have stopped doing pay for slay, but they have not stopped doing pay for slay. Yeah. So Roman Viking is saying the fuck? Absolutely. This is what Israel is dealing with.
We have a 1 or a 2 whenever you're ready. I'm not
A
sure
1
which
and
one.
2
No, it's 1 or a 2. I'm not
Oh.
really sure.
from?
Rebecca, I'm pretty sure it's a 2.
So okay, so we're ignoring that one.
No, no.
All right, no. So I'll do it. I'll do it after I talk about this one. So Istifan Salame as essentially has said, it's actually, apparently it's not, I thought it happened now, but apparently it's from a few months ago. He said he is the finance minister of the Palestinian Authority, and he said that earthly solutions have ended for the lack of funds, because Israel has now closed if they're going to not fulfill their end of the Oslo Accords, then we're not going to fulfill ours, namely paying the money. Or like giving them money from things that they sold or from donations and so on. And he's saying that the earthly solutions to their problem has ended, and that the fact that the PA is still functional is almost miraculous. And it's like, apparently it's on the verge of collapse. And I think that would be a good thing. It will cause short-term disorder, but I think eventually, like, the Palestinian Authority is a cancerous entity on Palestinians, first and foremost. And also it's problematic for Israel. But firstly, like, Palestinians despise the Palestinian Authority because it's super corrupt. It's a foreign imposition on the Palestinians who live a fundamentally tribal lifestyle. And so they have, like, their family bonds, or their extended family bond is really important. And I think eventually it's the best thing that can happen to Palestinians and Israelis is if the Palestinian Authority falls, and then you find some other solution that's less than a state, and you have, like, autonomy for, like, a village and so on. Each particular village has its own autonomy and own security coordination with Israel, and you can have Hebron join the Abraham Accords as the first step, and hopefully it will lead to prosperity. And so other villages will also want to do that, because they have their family ties are first, well before their national identity, and a lot of them don't even hold that strong of a national identity of Palestinians as Palestinians. Yeah, so Israel should take control of Judea and Samaria when this happens, Roman Viking says. Yes and no. Sort of like, it should be under an Israeli umbrella, but there should be autonomy for these villages. We don't want them to be a complete part of Israel. Imagine they've just been brainwashed with poison over the last 20 plus years against Israel and against Jews. Yeah, okay. So Kevin, thank you for the super chat. Kevin is saying 15 minutes, guy. Yeah, so I'll finish this topic and then I'll go. But so if it collapses, that's a good thing. Israel is now trying to expand a certain settlement block in a strategic place. I'm not going to go too far into detail of where that is, but this got fury at Israel from UK Foreign Secretary Ed Miliband and others. And Gideon Sa'ar hit back, calling Miliband's language patronizing, entirely one-sided, arguing that Britain has no right to lecture Jews on where they can live in their historic homeland, considering that, one, they consistently ignore Palestinian extremism, and two, they still have a couple of colonies that they keep in their back pocket, just like in their collection, that are absolutely not part of native British soil, unlike Israel. And there were also allegations about an arson that Israeli settlers had set fire to a Palestinian family's home. Investigation found that it was an electrical failing, But hey, our home is burning down. Might as well at least make use of it to falsely accuse Israel of doing stuff. Jeffrey, hey Jeffrey. Unfortunately, I'm just about to finish and go into the next stream, but I'd love to see you there as well. It's not a discussion group, but it's going to be Armin, me, Sid, potentially Monkey. I don't know if he's back already. Yeah. Okay. So that's most of what I had to talk about today. And for everyone, please, if you like this kind of content and you want to learn more about Israel and the Middle East, please subscribe to my channel. It's in the description. And watch videos from my channel, be it live streams, be it like snippets that are then uploaded to my channel. It's very important because we're trying to get my watch hours up for me to get monetized. And so
Don't forget, Rebecca still has a 2, and I have a 1.
Right. Yeah, Rebecca, sorry. I mean, not sorry, but sort of sorry.
Well, all right, Rebecca.
Yes. No, I was just saying, when Mahmoud Abbas eventually dies, because he's like in his 90s, and like probably Barghouti is like maybe, I don't know, if we didn't take over first or do something to shore up the situation before he dies, you're going to get a situation where like Hamas is all through Judea and Samaria. And like with Barghouti probably number 1 in leading the polls of like to take over. I don't even necessarily mean Hamas as an organization, but that ideology anyway. Sorry, I'm done.
So I think actually I predict a lot of infighting after Abbas dies. So it actually might be better to just wait it out, because if they have no funds, and they have unfortunately he chose a clear successor, but it might not stick. But if they have no funds and they have a infighting, it might collapse on itself, and then like there's no choice but for Israel to take over, and that might be a cleaner way for it to happen. I'm not sure.
Okay, cool. I never thought of it.
But that is a good point. And again, if Hamas takes over, they don't have the 20 years of rule over Gaza that they've had, where they built tunnels. If they take over, then that's casus belli for Israel to take over, because we can't allow Hamas to control any sliver of territory anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, there we go. So Roman reckoning, that would be enough pretext to invade and annex Judea and Samaria. All right. Anyone else? Are there any other questions in the chat?
I had a 1.
Yes,
and it was more just an announcement, and it's about America. Well, maybe, but the IRGC just issued a bounty for Trump's son Barron for $10 million. So I think that may change things a little bit. You know,
I actually think we knew that they were targeting him for like a week now. I don't know if they have issued an official bounty before, but Trump
I got the answer.
Aware of this. Yeah, go ahead, Jose.
I got the answer. That was about 3 days ago. They announced it. I never posted it to the stream, to the Armin's group, because I figured everybody would have seen it. Yeah. But that was 3 days ago. They fully announced it, $10 million for a dead Barron Trump. So we'll see what, I mean, last time Trump's daughter got targeted, Trump unleashed all hell fury on him. So now his youngest son is being targeted. I don't know. I still think, I don't think there's going to be another, I think they're going to try economic D&D. But if they're trying to piss off Trump, they're definitely, they're wishing for a death sentence. They really are.
Yeah, I did not know. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I didn't know, number one, that they had done that. I don't know why I would have missed that. But I would be actually a little bit more afraid of Melania at this point. That's her baby.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so I don't. Someone's saying, look at Trump's latest Truth Social post. I don't know if it's the latest one, but the one I have is the failing Islamic Republic of Iran is not paying large segments of their military, while at the same time killing protesters even when they are not protesting at levels not seen before. It is a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions and must be stopped. So this is encouraging to me, because this means that whatever happens, it seems as though he's going to tie the Iranian people into the solution. Even if he makes a deal, that deal would have to involve not harming civilians, and they're not going to be able to do that. But more than likely, he's setting up the stage for why the Islamic Republic falling is a great thing. Okay. Was there any? I think there was another Truth Social post, but I have to go. Unfortunately, I mean, I'm gonna have another stream in like 10 minutes, so you're gonna see it on both my channel and on Liberty Politics. So that's fine. Trump is apparently trying to annex Lake Ontario, calling it Lake America, annexing a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, I've just been informed by the United States Navy that all mines have been removed and or detonated from within the international waters of the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has been notified that any ship or boat placing new mines will be immediately and systematically destroyed. Through Space Force, we're watching every square inch of the strait, as we are also with Pickaxe Mountain and the already destroyed 3 other nuclear sites. There is a zero tolerance policy on mine placement in full force and effect. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Okay, so that's the latest one. As long as things continue and he doesn't like go back to the MOU or something like that, I'm fine with what's going on. As are, from my understanding, most Iranians. They understand that this is like chemo. If you want to remove cancer, you have to go through some suffering. Although it might be a sampling bias on my part. I'm not ruling that out, but that's my understanding of the situation. All right, everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Link in the description. It's Guy Landau IL. Okay. This is the channel. And I'll see you guys hopefully in less than 10 minutes on the other stream.
You forgot the Hebrew and transport course.
Oh yeah, okay. And also, if you want to learn Hebrew, if you're interested in learning Hebrew, I have an online self-paced course. I have almost 10 years of teaching experience. Also background in cognitive science. I learned where I learned how learning works, and specifically how language learning works, and I incorporated that into the course, and also my own experience learning languages independently. So I speak Arabic and Japanese in addition to Hebrew and English. And so I have a lot of language learning experience. So I did the Hebrew course, and Yuda is in charge of the Hebrew course and the Transbrew course. And yeah, and the course is Hebleo, Hebleo.com. All right. See you guys on the other side. Bye.